Welcome to The Sober Unicorn. We are a gay-hosted, all-inclusive podcast about sobriety and addiction recovery for the LGBT plus community and all of our allies. I am your host, Holden, and thank you for joining us today. Hey everybody, it's Holden back here again with The Sober Unicorn. I hope everybody's having a great day. If you're not, of course, don't ever hesitate to reach out to me or any of the guests that have ever shared their social media platforms. So today we are joined by another colleague of mine. I've had the pleasure of working with her in general for over a year now, but beside her now for about a month and a half-ish, going on 2 months. And I know she has an interesting story and she has some clean time under her belt. So I kind of wanted to invite her on and just share her journey of recovery. So hello, Nicole.
Hello.
How's your morning so far? You just woke up.
Well, I've been up. I've just been laying in bed. I have a 7-year-old, remember, so my
That is
mornings.
true.
Yeah, my
Man,
mornings start early.
I cannot imagine having a child. I mean, I woke up at 7 and then I was like, was supposed to go work out, but it was like, nah.
Have you been working? I meant to ask you that at work. Have you been?
No. So what happened was my goal right now is I'm waking up early enough to go to the gym. Just develop that habit of waking up early. And now I'm honestly kind of hoping to go this next week because I truly need to like get something going. Especially we're going on our trip in December. We're going to, of course, Europe, and I don't like. It's already going to be uncomfortable on the plane. So if I can lose 30 more pounds to be more comfortable on the plane, then it'd be worth it.
Yeah. Why don't you go on Ozempic?
Okay,
You'll
don't get
drop
me
30
wrong.
pounds in 2 seconds.
Nothing is wrong with
for your
people.
vacation, and then you go off it.
This is the problem with Ozempic. So I'm a big boy, if you can't tell. And Ozempic would make me lose weight way too fast. And so I would get a lot of the saggy skin. And
Even with 30 pounds, you think?
yeah, because of how fast you lose it. And like most people, once they go off Ozempic, they gain all the weight back.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, most people aren't changing their eating habits. They're not changing their exercise habits. They're just like taking the shot to make them not eat as much.
I did it.
Oh God, I forgot. For what? You know what? No comment. Anyways, and excuse the pimple, everybody. Did not mean for that to happen today. And if you hear any like growling or barking, my bulldog would not shut the hell up. So I had to put him in one of the bedrooms because he was like over on his bed making all kinds of noise and snarling, and you know what bulldog noises make.
Oh, but he's so cute.
I know. He's adorable. I love him to death, but while recording a podcast, that bitch needs to be put away.
Okay, well, same for me. I have a 7-year-old that growls and makes sounds as well. So if you hear anything, that's
So did you lock him in a room too?
No, he's I probably will at some point. I don't know how quiet he's playing with his toys on the floor. I told him he needs to stay quiet, so we'll see what happens. But that's
good.
Fair warning.
Of course. Okay, so why don't you kind of tell everybody your journey of recovery?
Okay, so I'm currently 42. I got sober at 37. So I have 5 years. I'm from New Hampshire originally, born and raised. Very small state, not much happens. I was a good kid growing up. I was very into sports, dance, everything, which ended up saving my life, I truly believe, because if it wasn't for soccer in high school and college, I probably would have started using sooner than I did. My soccer coach was like a father figure to me, and I needed that in my life. My dad left at an early age of, I was just turning 13. My father left with my aunt, which is always an interesting story. Yeah. My mom's brother's sister and my dad. So it was my mom's sister-in-law and my dad left at 13. They both were addicts. Can I like get specific about like drugs, or do I want to read
Yeah,
that
of
part?
course. No, and you can
Okay.
curse. It's totally cool.
Okay. So they were into, my dad's always been an alcoholic, but his drug of choice was crack cocaine. So as was hers. She was a hairdresser, and my dad had his own company. He had a cable company. So we had a lot of things growing up because of my dad's company. He did really well. So we had everything. And when he left at 13 to go smoke crack with my aunt, we lost everything. He left my mom, myself, and my brother. My brother's 4 years younger than me. So we went from having everything to moving into Section 8 housing. And I now was sharing a bedroom with my brother, who's 4 years younger than me, at 13 years old as a girl. And at that point, everything changed for me. I went from being a little girl to I felt like an adult. My mom was working 3 jobs because my dad, when he left everything behind. Every bill, everything that his company had, my mom was left to pay and couldn't. She had like a paper route job part time. So she ended up getting 3 jobs, literally working around the clock, which left him and I home a lot. So if we weren't in school and we were at home, my mom wasn't around. So I was left to my own devices at 13 years old. And I was taking care of my brother. I was getting him on the bus every morning, making sure he was fed, getting him off the bus every day, making sure he was fed, making sure that he didn't kill himself between the hours of 3 and 7:30 when my mom would get home. It was a lot of responsibility at a young age, and it forced me to have to grow up, but it also left me very angry. Not just at my current circumstance, but the fact that my dad left. He was my everything. My mom and my brother were close, and it was me and my dad. So um I grew up early. 13 is kind of when I started going off the rails. It wasn't terrible, but I was, smoking pot and hanging out with older kids who were drinking, um, and not doing the right thing. So that's kind of when it all started. I still maintained grades in school and was active in dance at that time. And I was a competitive dancer. So I was always at competitions on the weekends all over New England. And we practiced. We were in the studio every day. So that kept me in line for the most part, gave me something to do, kept me busy.
And if
Going into high
anybody
school.
doesn't know, New England is in America.
Oh my God. Yeah, it's New Hampshire, Maine, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Vermont. So in high school, I stopped dancing and got into soccer, and ended up being really good at it. Did I want to do it? No. My mom always like pushed me to do things like that, and I'm glad that she did that because, like I said earlier, it kept me in line, and I ended up loving it. So I played soccer in high school, not just for my high school team. I played all year round. So I played indoor soccer, I played travel soccer, and I absolutely loved it. And on the side, when I wasn't playing soccer, I was hanging out with my friends from high school, but a lot of them had dropped out. So they were all smoking pot, drinking. That's when I started doing ecstasy and going to raves every weekend. Um, there was like this club in Massachusetts that we would drive down to on Fridays, and then if there was a rave, like another party somewhere, we would do that like Saturday. But it got me into the harder drugs, so I was like using a lot of ecstasy, smoking dippies, which is angel dust, and doing a lot of Special K. And it was just on the weekends, so I felt like it was normal, but it was actually opening this monster in me. And that's when I knew I was different than everybody else, because I never wanted to stop. So we would go and party on the weekends, and I wanted to keep going. And I did. So it got bad. And by my senior year, I was a dumpster for anything I could get my hands on. But I was living like two lives. I was playing soccer. I was like this really good athlete, and I got a scholarship to go play soccer at a university, which I did. I ended up blowing my knee out, so I played my freshman year. We went into the championship game. It was our second championship game. It was pouring rain. It was an away game, and I blew my knee out on the field. Couldn't play soccer anymore, which took away not just soccer, but like this constant structure that I had. And after that, I stayed in school, but I had nothing but free time on my hands. And I got into pills. Back then it was Oxy 80s, and that's what I started using, not knowing that I was going to become physically dependent, because thus far I hadn't used anything that was like physically dependent, like that I became physically dependent on. It was all like you could put it down. The opiates, however, were a whole new game for me. I couldn't stop, and I was physically dependent, and I didn't really know what was going on. And I was getting sick when I didn't use, and I didn't know what that was until one of my friends was like, "Oh, you're going through withdrawals." And I was like, "Oh, that makes sense." So that lasted through college. After college, I was still using pills. I was going to nightclubs and bartending. That's what I was doing for a living. And again, just running with this crowd that I had no business running with. Pills, they stopped making the 80s, so I started using perks, which were expensive. And to maintain this monster of an addiction that I had, I couldn't do with just Percocet. So one day, I came home with, mind you, my little brother that I mentioned earlier in my story was right there with me. Him and I are like best friends to this day. I'm his biggest fan. I love him with all my heart. He was my little sidekick, and I had him running with me, doing everything I was doing. So one day I come home and I have this script for Dilaudid, and I didn't know what they were. I just knew they were a painkiller because I had my appendix out, and I got what do you call a hematoma? So like my whole stomach was like a giant bruise, and it hurt really bad. So they put me on those. I told my brother that I had this script. Quiet, please. And he was like, "Oh, well, do you want to shoot up?" And I was like, "What?" I had no clue at this time that he was using needles. And he told me, "Yeah, I've been like shooting up, and we can shoot these, and it'll be great, and I'll do it for you," because I was scared of needles. I was like, "I'm not doing that." He's like, "I'll do it for you." So that was the beginning of me being an IV drug user. I never put it down after that. And I was shooting the pills for probably about a year, and then found heroin along the way. And heroin became my everything, my best friend, my mom, my dad, everything. That any relationship I had like that became my everything. And it was a wrap from that point on. I used every day to the point where I was
Your
destroying
son,
my life.
that's what I was saying.
I didn't
I
even
was
know he
like,
was back there. I was like wrapped in him. So he has no shirt on either. So anyways, he or I started, the withdrawals were so bad when I wasn't using. And I went to my mom, who was clueless. I'm sure she knew like something was going on, but she didn't know the extent of absolutely not, of what we were doing. Go in the other room. So I went to my mom and told her what was going on and was begging for help because I didn't want to do this anymore. And the solution where I'm from is to go into a Suboxone doctor or a methadone clinic. So I started with Suboxone, did well. I wasn't using anymore. I was just on the subs. But there was no solution for me. It was just filling in a blank. So I wasn't sick. And it worked till it didn't. I started getting high again and went on another run. This time I started using, I'm probably like, I don't even know how old I am at this point, but I'm using uppers and downers now. So I'm shooting coke and I'm shooting heroin. And I loved it, to be perfectly honest with you. It was, I had arrived, and but my life started falling apart faster and faster. Like the more I was using, like the faster things were falling apart around me. I had a child, so I have an 18-year-old who has been through all of this with me. I got pregnant with her father, who was actively selling drugs. So I was getting all of mine free. And it was a nightmare. He was abusive physically and emotionally. Him and I were together for a while, before and after the baby. It wasn't a good relationship though, which also did damage. Now looking back, it did a lot of damage that I currently have to like deal with. So I get pregnant. I'm able to stay sober while I'm pregnant and after. I did okay with that until my son's transgender too. So back then he was a she. So until probably like 6 months old, I stayed sober and started using again. I picked up right where I left off and left him because he put his hands on me and blah, blah, blah. So I moved back in with my mom, which wasn't good because my mom and I's relationship was strained, and it had been since years before. So now I'm living in a house with my mom and my child, my baby, and I'm using again. I'm not working. My life's just a mess. So now I'm like, I get to the point where I'm like, I got to do something again. And I go into the methadone clinic. I'm in the clinic for a while, in and out of that. So I did that up until I came down here. I was in the but again, I didn't have a solution. So there was no therapy. There was no 12 steps. There was no sponsorship. There weren't AA meetings, NA meetings, none of that. I would just go there every morning and get my dose and walk out the door. And some days I wouldn't go. I would skip a few days in a row so I could use. And that was the cycle I was in until again, I get to a point where I'm like, I can't live like this anymore. I need something. I need help. So again, go to my mom, who probably hated me at this point because I was just a little monster. I was wreaking havoc everywhere. And she tried to get me to go to a treatment center up there. I wouldn't go. So my brother, who had already been in Florida, he had 4 or 5 years at this point, flew home, had like this sit down intervention with me, just me and him. And I was really broken. Forget about the drugs and all that at this point in my addiction. I hated myself. And I had another baby. I forgot that part. So while in the methadone clinic, I got pregnant with my son's father, he and I were actively using. Um, I got pregnant in the methadone clinic, had my son on methadone, which was an experience unless you've been through what it does to you. It was just awful. I literally hated myself. I never want to go back there. So that was like what I feel like pushed me over the edge to the point of where my mental health was just shot. I literally hated myself. My eyes would wake up every morning or open up every morning, and I didn't want to do it. I would literally lay there in the mornings and think, maybe I should just end it. Maybe I should just do overdose, put everybody out of their misery and not have to deal with me anymore. So that place that I was in, that really dark place, was more the problem for me than the drugs, because I had enough drugs to last me a lifetime. I'd gotten wrapped up with the Hells Angels, and they were giving me whatever I wanted to sell their drugs for them. And it worked until it didn't work. And my mental health was just awful. And I talk about this a lot when I'm talking to other people in recovery. The way I felt about myself is what got me clean. My spirit, the way I felt spiritually, I couldn't take it anymore. I was using to make that feeling go away, but it got to the point where it wasn't working anymore. So I went to treatment, and my brother flew me down here. I went to detox, which was awful coming off the methadone. PHP and ILP, into a halfway house. So for a total of 13 months, I was in Florida away from my kids. My mom watched my children while I was gone. It was awful for me because I had my kids with me. Like, even though I was a train wreck, like, my kids were with me, and being away from them was really hard. I knew that's what I needed to do, though. I got sober. And for the first time in 17 years, I was finally clean at the age of 37 in Florida with nothing but my suitcase that I came down with. My mom, my dad, and my brother helped me find a place to live. So I moved out of halfway into the house I'm currently in now. Got my kids down here. While in treatment in halfway, I got plugged into a program. I started with AA. I'm in NA now, but I started with AA. Worked my steps, was sponsoring women. I had up to 16 sponsees. Six sponsees, not 16. 6 sponsees at one point. And it was everything I needed. The program introduced how to love, how to accept love, how to love myself, and how to love people around me. Because that's what I needed to do. I've given back ever since. I now have a home group I go to every week, and I have a sponsor who's amazing. I'm not sponsoring anybody. Since I switched to NA, I'm still working my steps, which take longer than the AA steps do.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm still going through my steps. So until she says I can sponsor people if I want to, or if somebody asks, but I just don't feel like I know enough about the NA program. Riker, please stop right now to do that. But I'm working on me still. I've done a lot of work since I came down to Florida. It's been a constant every day. I do my prayer and meditation in the morning, and I pray a lot now. I know some people aren't into that, but it works for me. I didn't have any of that when I came down here. No connection whatsoever to my spirituality at all. And it's been a big part of my recovery. believe it or not. I never would have thought that, but that's that's what's worked for me.
Yeah. And so I kind of want to go backwards because you and I share a similar experience with our dads. Kind
Oh,
of both addicts and everything like that, and both did kind of dipped out. You moved
mhm,
into Section 8 housing. I had to move into a
mhm.
neighborhood that like Domino's and Pizza Hut would not go
Yes.
in after dark.
Oh, wow.
How many of their drivers had been killed? And so how is, because I know my relationship with my father is still very strained. I haven't spoke to him since my 15th birthday. How is your relationship with your dad now?
It's it's better. It's still I don't think the relationship will ever be a normal relationship, whatever that is. He ended up coming back when I was like like a freshman or a sophomore in college. It was the first time I had to pee since he had left. Um, we had a big long conversation that night, and I went and saw him shortly after that. And he was still actively drinking though, so like I had all these hopes and dreams that I'm gonna go see him and he's gonna be normal, but that's not the case. Um, he's sober now. He never worked a program. He just cold turkeyed it. Um, I talk to him sadly when I need something, but I don't I don't know that I have a relationship with him. I guess I
But I mean, the
do.
line of
It's
communication is
just
at least open.
it is open,
Okay,
yes,
good.
and it's not and it's a healthy relationship. Like there's yes. He asks about my kids and he's come and visited them since being in Florida because he also lives in Florida, just on the other coast. So he's definitely in my life. It's just I don't know, weird. We've never like had any
Coming to Jesus
uh,
moment where it's like, "Oh, dad,"
no.
like running in the
Yeah,
field and just
yeah,
coming together with that big.
right.
And people, what's funny, you say the other coast. Girl, please. People talk about the other coast like it's 10 hours away. That hoe was like 2 hours away.
Still
I've
feels like
driven
the
to
other
the other
coast.
coast to have dinner with a friend. But so you also talked about your son being 18 years old now, and he was kind of with you during active addiction. Like, have you and him had this like sit
Mm,
down conversation about
mhm.
who you were and like how it affected him and everything?
Yeah, and again, in my mind, when I came down here, I lied to him about where I was going. I just said that I was going to Florida. Um, and when I was in IOP is when the entire time I was in treatment, I was talking with my therapist about what this conversation was going to look like. And I was so scared to have the conversation because I didn't know what it was going to look like. And I had it though. I made the phone call. I kept it real simple, like the program tells you to do. And I was just like, Mom came down, I'm down here in Florida. I'm in treatment. I'm trying to get sober. I'm better now. And all that kid said to me was, I just want you to be okay. I'm happy and I want you to be
Oh,
okay. And it was the best feeling in the world. I thought it was going to go sideways, but that's how easy that conversation was. And we've never really, I mean, I'm always running meetings here at the house, and he knows what I do for work. So does my little guy. Um, so
that's an
he
interesting
knows.
conversation with a 7-year-old.
Well, so he says funny things like when we're in Publix grocery shopping and we go down to get the frozen pizza, it's also the aisle with the alcohol. So he calls it the alcoholic aisle. Um, and if he's run into a couple people um, along the way, and it was one of my mom's friends, her son struggles with drugs and alcohol, and he said something like, "You can call my mom and she'll help you." Um, So he kind of understands. He doesn't know where I come from because he's never seen me like my oldest. He's never
Mhm,
seen me like Kai did. Kai's the name of my oldest. But,
mhm.
I definitely had the conversation, and Kai knows everything.
Yeah, and do you
He knew
think, I mean,
everything all along.
because how old was Kai when he came out to you?
So while I was in IOP, I got a phone call from my mom that Kai was in the hospital, and the hospital had placed him in an inpatient facility because he had started cutting shortly after
Mhm,
I left. And I thought at the time that it had more to do with me leaving than what was really going on. And while in the inpatient facility, I was in contact with Kai and my mother. He came out that he was transgender, and uh, he was probably, so that was probably about like 5 years ago because I was in treatment, maybe a little less than that, but it's been open and out for about 5 years now.
and of course, with trans individuals, it's very hard, I would say, for them to go to their parents, especially coming out to one thing, but, like, the conversation about further details, about, like, surgeries and stuff like that, it's hard for them to be open about it. So do you think the openness of your addiction and how honest you've been with him has allowed him to, like, trust you and be as open with his journey as well?
Yeah, I've always had a good relationship with him, even mm, through my active addiction. That's something I'm very grateful for is the relationship I've had with him. He's always been able to like talk to me. I've always been, I don't know what the word is, but
You've always essentially just kind
like
of been there.
approachable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah.
like never judgmental or anything about anything that's ever gone on.
Shit, do I know a different Nicole than Kai knows? Judgmental. Only at work, I guess. That's when it comes out. You say
No, no, it's only when you eat old food, Holden. That's it.
it was only the fridge for one day. Anyways, so talking about men, you kind of didn't have the best, I would say the best choices when it came to relationships. So of course you're in a relationship now. Do you think your choices of men has improved? Or like how do you handle your relationships nowadays?
Um, so the relationship I'm in now, he's in recovery as well. I met him, I had about a little over a year. Well, I maybe like a year and a half. Yeah. When I met him. They tell you not to be in a relationship the first year, which I did. Um, so going into this relationship, like I said, I had like a year and a half clean. I wasn't the person I am today then. Um every every year going forward with getting sober, I've grown. So in the beginning, he had a year more than me when I met him. So he wasn't exactly healed either. And it's it's hard being in a relationship with another addict because we all come to the table with we're we're healed, but we're still broken people.
Hmm.
And we come to the table with all of that baggage. And I had a lot. And I thought that I was ready to be in a relationship and that I was this best version of me and I was better than I was, but I wasn't the best version. I don't even know if I am fully where I want to be yet. But it's been it's been the first relationship that I've been sober in. So with that comes all of my emotions and feelings and reactions to, and I've I've gotten a lot better. I've done a lot of work in this relationship.
Mhm,
It's been difficult. We've had a lot of highs and lows because of the fact that we both come with our own baggage,
mhm.
and we're both trying to navigate a relationship with all of that dragging behind us. Um Actively working on it, yes, but it's relationships aren't easy. I've learned how to love. I can say that in recovery, and our relationship's good now. But like I said, we've gone through a lot. Because even with put the put the addiction part of it aside, relationships just aren't easy if you stay in it. I'm a runner. I love to, when things get hard, run away. Um,
Oh,
I
I was
had a
gonna
lot
say,
of
I don't see you going and running a track in a park.
no, I run away. I don't want to deal with it. And that's what I did the first chunk of our relationship. I had my walls up. I was a hard person to love. And I also I wasn't easily going to love you. So there was a lot of that we had to go through, but we're good
Okay,
now.
good. I mean,
We're still
and
together. It's been almost, well, it's been like 4 years. So
listen, being in a relationship with a normie isn't easy either because
right. That's what you did.
even though they support you and know that this is part of your journey of like recovery, it's still very weird when you're like, okay, babe, like I have to go to a meeting. Oh, tonight, yeah, I really need to go. And then they're like, well, why do you need it? And I'm just like, bitch. And when there has been times that I've had a burning desire, I don't feel comfortable discussing that with my normie partner because
Really?
if I'm like, "Oh, I wanna go drink," and they're like, "Well, why?" "Just because I fucking want to." "Well, why do you
Right.
want to?" "Bitch, I just told you. I want to."
And they don't
That's
get it. He
yeah,
must
so, I
not even
mean,
understand.
like, he has his own like, I wouldn't say he never was an addiction, so, I mean, he doesn't drink, doesn't do drugs or anything, but it's like, even though he supports and that's kind of like I'm thankful he has, like, 2 or 3 clients at work that are also in recovery. So anytime that I come say something that he just doesn't comprehend, he'll go talk to them and be like, "Hey, this is what he said." Like, so they kind of help explain it to him better as well, and he gets different
Mhm.
perspectives, saying, "Hey, this is just part of being in recovery." So one thing that I've discussed with you recently that I kind of want to share with everybody is methadone and Suboxone.
Mm, mm,
So, methadone and Suboxone are used a lot, and especially methadone, the coming down from it is a lot worse than the actual drug that it's used to as a maintenance program, and the dosage gets higher and higher and higher to the point where it's very, very hard to ever come off of it. So, would you, if you could do this all over again, would you go onto Suboxone again, or would you say, "No, I'd never wanna do Suboxone or methadone and strictly just detox?"
I would, so if no, I say this all the time, but I would burn every methadone clinic to the ground if I could. Uh Suboxone's a little different in regards to like maintenance and actually getting sober, because Suboxone clinics offer something that the methadone doesn't. So in my experience, the Suboxone clinic offered therapy and um, encouraged you to eventually come off of the Suboxone. You came in with the understanding that you were going to start at this dose, and by this date, and it was that cut and dry, you're no longer going to be on this. That was the goal, which is not the case in a methadone clinic. The methadone clinic gives you zero therapy. They say you're supposed to see your therapist once a month, but you can miss that therapy appointment and no one cares. You go in every day, and I need you to do that after. I'm not going to say it again. Goodbye. So in the methadone clinic, you don't get a start and end date. You don't come in and have a sit down with a doctor and he says to you, okay, you're starting this day on this dose. By this day, you'll no longer be on anything. The methadone clinic keeps you going. They continuously up to my dose. I had no program, so I didn't have a solution outside that wall. And I would go in every morning and walk to the window, and they hand me a little plastic cup. I'd take my dose and off I'd go. And once a month they would UA me, where in the Suboxone clinic, they UA you every time you go in, and you go in twice a month. They UA you every month. And if you're dirty, they'll kick you out of the clinic entirely. They don't say to you, oh, you're using, let me give you some more Suboxone, like they do in the methadone clinic. If you're using in the Suboxone clinic, they kick you out. If you're using in the methadone clinic, they just tell you, well, you're using still, you must need more. Let me give you some more, and up and up and up and up and up you go. And you get to the point where you're so physically dependent on it, and you get Suboxone, you don't feel anything off of it. You're not like nodding out. You're not anything. You can actually function on it like a normal human being, and it alleviates the cravings. Where methadone, you feel it. You're a walking zombie. You can't get anything done. You're exhausted all the time. You're nodding out. It's just a very dirty, ugly form of sobriety, in my opinion. So I would never go into, and neither one of them did anything for me. The Suboxone did till it didn't. I think maybe if I had a program and was on Suboxone, I probably would have done better in regards to staying sober. But neither one of them did what I was looking for. But the methadone clinic, no. No.
You're like, don't do it. No. Of course.
Because it was a nightmare to get off of. A nightmare.
I will disclaim, of course, as always, when doing these recommendations, is if you ever think about going on or off of methadone, Suboxone, whatever, please consult your doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Like this, we are sharing strictly from experience. We are not medical professionals. So again, consult your goddamn doctor, because heaven forbid we tell somebody something and they do something stupid and try to blame the sober unicorn when we just trying to help.
Yeah, don't do that. I don't know that I mean, to be perfectly honest with you, in either one of those situations, I don't know that I even really wanted to be sober. So who's to say? You know, some people do really good on it. But I'm just not a big advocate for the methadone clinics at all.
Of course. So before we wrap the episode, is there anything that you would like to share with everybody that you haven't done so already?
Just work a program, get plugged in. That's the only thing that I did different this time. I took the suggestions, whether they made sense to me or not, because I say this to people too, like sometimes going to meetings doesn't make a lot of sense, and getting a sponsor, sometimes it doesn't all make sense to me, like why I have to do this for the rest of my life. I struggle with it, but I do it anyways because I take suggestions. So if you really want to get sober, take the suggestions, and all of them. Don't pick and choose which ones you want to do and which ones you don't, because that'll keep you sick. If you take all the suggestions and you keep working on yourself, you can do it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Nicole, for joining us today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to our episode. If you want to be notified about every new episode release, hit that subscribe button. Make sure to check out our website at thesoberunicornpodcast.com. Don't forget, everybody, don't be normal, be a unicorn, but better yet, be a sober unicorn.